Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Hopefully you've all had or are going to have a fantastic Friday. This is going to be our daily cryptocurrency market update, and what a volatile 24 hours it has been. We saw Bitcoin in the early hours of the morning, sort of between 1 and 2 o'clock. Last night for me, actually get back above $20,000, only for it to get smashed right the way down. And this was really caused by a short squeeze. It's very much a trader's market. You know, if you think about markets, it's really all about what's coming in and out on the day. That's what moves price. Volume precedes price, which is why we've been looking at volume so closely. And ultimately, we saw too many aggressively placed shorts essentially get liquidated. And you can see that in regards to the liquidations that took place over here. Very predominantly short. Now, exchanges will look to liquidate individuals. They will look to run stops and hunt liquidity. And I believe that's what happened last night. Ultimately, the bias that I'm going to continue to reiterate until we see any reason to pivot is that we see lower prices across the board. What I'll do very quickly is actually show you the price action that we saw last night, and then we'll get into a number of interesting things, like we'll look at some comments from JP Morgan in regards to the kind of deleveraging, the capitulation we're seeing for many crypto funds out there. JP Morgan is essentially saying that this will not last much longer. Michael Burry, of course, we're going to be talking about. Michael Burry is somebody who I have great respect for calling the 2008 financial crisis. Everybody laughed at him for a period of time, and then he became very, very wrong and kind of immortalized as a result of it. And he's back essentially saying that this is just halfway through the pain that we need to see. And I somewhat agree, and we'll dive into the stock market to kind of back that up. Get into a number of other really interesting things because there's a lot going on right now. We'll also talk about the fact that El Salvador bought another 80 Bitcoin. I don't know why this is such big news, but I guess it is significant in the sense that a country is actually buying and continuing to buy despite the price action, BTC, and actually using it as an opportunity. So let's get down into the time frames. Let's drop down to the 4-hourly. You can see what I'm talking about here. Early hours of the morning for me. Or actually not even the early hours of the morning. Well, this one certainly was at 1 o'clock. But you can see just the run-up that we had here. And could this have been to try and get a better close on the month? Potentially. Somebody definitely bid this up, but it got killed rather quickly. For me, this is just a stop run. Exchanges will actively look to hunt traders. Trading in many ways is kind of a zero-sum game. And what I mean by that is when you add commissions and you add trading fees and everything into it, it's the odds are massively stacked against you. And this is what traders and exchanges will look to do. They'll look to sort of squeeze people out of their positions. And that's what we had. You've got a lot of aggressive shorts down here as things were looking pretty detrimental yesterday. And of course, we saw, those shorts get squeezed, kind of escalating the upward move. But I don't trust this at all. I don't really like volatility to this degree, certainly in this kind of skittish manner. Ultimately, for me, Bitcoin is going to go on and make a new low. Remember, the low that we had was around about 17K. There's no reason why Bitcoin doesn't see, when you understand what we're potentially moving into in terms of the economy, 15K or something around that region. I really don't think that is out of the realms of possibility, and I actually think that is a likely scenario. And we've not seen any follow through on this move as of yet. We're not above 20K yet. We did say, and we commented this on Twitter before we had actually broke the 20K level, and we were kind of flirting with it up here, that look, 20K is going to break. There was no volume sort of supporting and holding the 20K level. And ultimately, we are now below that, and 20K may be the new resistance. We certainly saw a run up and then a very quick slap down below the 20K level, which is certainly interesting. Markets are markets at the end of the day, guys. If you want them to go one way, they'll often go the other on the short term. But as long as you have a sort of longer term bias, I believe you will do just fine. And we can see volumes actually increasing. Here we had declining volume, which is how we knew this was going to break. And now you've got volume coming back up the other way on the downward move. So momentum is going to continue. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how the stock market opens today, because the stock market will really dictate, I believe, the direction of the cryptocurrency market. Certainly on Friday, if we get that negative close, it leaves us very vulnerable for the weekend, as we have a long weekend ahead. Also, we have the FTSE is something that I watch. I watch all the UK stocks. It gives me an early indication of what markets are going to do. They close down quite hard, but there's a battle to try and defend these. And I almost feel like people are very much in denial right now that we potentially are heading into a recession and what that means. A recession is not a good outlook for crypto or the equity market generally, certainly the tech stock sector. But people don't seem to have acknowledged that yet and keep sort of hanging on to glimpses of hope that this may not be the case, and the Fed may step in and sort of, pump markets through the roof. We'll see that happen, and the Fed's very good at signaling that. That doesn't seem to be the case yet. I was reading this article that was actually a very lackluster argument against the Fed continuing to raise interest rates. Forget rate hikes. These analysts are predicting interest rate cuts next year. So that doesn't address this year, just next year. And you've got a number of things here. One of the sort of pushbacks to rate hikes was there is a very high chance the Fed will end up cutting rates towards sort of the end of next year or something. And this is a recession story again. So that was actually a quote from one of the analysts that they've referenced. It seems very lackluster. The Fed ultimately are going to have to undo rates because they know that they're going to kill the economy off, certainly if inflation persists. Remember at the ECB forum, they very much said that was a likely story. They are going to have to dampen or revert on their interest rate hiking, really just to sustain the economy moving forwards. So, short squeeze, let's get on to JP Morgan's comments. Crypto deleveraging cycle won't last much longer. JP Morgan says metrics based on futures suggest the current cycle is already well in advance. In terms of, crypto funds capitulating, that actually may be the case. The risk for me isn't necessarily more capitulation in regards to cryptocurrency firms or funds or VCs. It's more the risk of everyday people not having the money to throw into markets and people continuing to hoard more cash. We've seen stablecoin dominance absolutely skyrocket recently. Banking giant JP Morgan expects the current debt-related mayhem in the digital asset market to come to an end soon. Crypto entities with the stronger balance sheet are currently stepping in to help contain the contagion. A report by the firm strategist said, funding from venture capitalists has also endured the turmoil and continue at healthy pace in May and June, according to reports. Just because one thing that we've seen is the incompetence of VC funds. I know traders, and actually many of us have actually outperformed VCs during this time period and your so-called institutional arms. Retail has actually done, in some ways, not all retail, because retail is always the bag holder, we know this, but actually performed, overperformed lots of institutions. That says a lot. So don't take the fact that VCs are still plowing money in. Like I say, there's this almost denial that we could be entering a recession. I think we're already in a recession, guys. I think it's here. I think we just have lagging indicators. And we've spoken about a number of things, like the fact that if we look at the 200 weekly moving average, you're doing exactly what you should be before you enter a recession. This is not capitulation like the March 2020 event, which sees really sharp buybacks as we see stimulus coming in. The environment is just simply different. And one thing that we've said relating to Bitcoin is Bitcoin came about in 2008. If you look at markets, and we've done this with you guys plenty of times, we'll take this off for the time being. We'll get rid of this volume profile. This is 2008 down here, guys. Markets have just gone up. This is a very different environment and ultimately leads me to believe that, if I think the stock market's coming down, crypto is very likely to follow it. I don't see an escape for the cryptocurrency market. And if you look at 2008, we've done this plenty of times with you guys, and we'll get into Michael Burry's tweet where he could be right this time. He was wrong. Bitcoin actually went on to make new all-time highs, but was he just early in his traditional Burry fashion? Potentially. This, of course, was 2008. 200 weekly moving average, you get a bounce, and then you slam straight below. I've covered all this on my Patreon time and time again. Again, over back in the dot-com boom, similar story. And if we look at the sort of wealth loss, and I believe this was a tweet that was took from Tyler's Zero Hedge article. First half, stocks worst in 60 years, bonds and Bitcoin worst ever. This is unprecedented time, and there's this real narrative out there that you should buy fear. I believe that if it's warranted. So if people are fearful and there isn't a reason for it, and they're just fearful based on price action, that's when you should come in and seize the opportunity. But the fear is not price necessarily related. It's more economically related. And we've said time and time again that this gets worse before it gets better. how many of you guys, and please leave me a comment if you disagree with me, because you're allowed to disagree. It's part of what makes the world such a wonderful place, is that people have differing opinions. But how many of you guys actually believe that things are going to get better from here and that Bitcoin has bottomed? I don't think you do. And I think, ultimately that it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everybody's looking at the same thing, and we've not reached that pain point where people have had to capitulate. We want to see that before we get into markets. We want to see panic. Famous saying out there that bulls go up the stairs, bears go out the window. Why is that? Well, greed is a lesser emotion than fear. That's why we see further capitulation. And people don't think that Bitcoin can round trip. I was listening to Jim Talbot's Twitter stream. Jim Talbot is a great guy to follow on Twitter, by the way. A little bit of a shout out to him. And he was essentially saying something that I found very interesting. In a trending market, the periods of consolidation contract. So what I'm essentially saying here, and what Jim's saying, is that essentially, look, you're going to get the spill here in a shorter period of time. And yesterday sort of preceded that. I actually, on my Patreon, told many of them that you guys already know, I make no bones about it, we're majority cash. We added to the cash position yesterday. And then we got the bounce straight after. This is how it goes, guys, but ultimately I have very high conviction that these markets come lower eventually. Michael Borry, adjust for inflation. 2022 first half, S&P down 25 to 26%, and Nasdaq down 34 to 35%. Bitcoin down 64 to 65%. That was multiple compression. Next up, earning compressions, so maybe halfway there. So what he's referring to here is that companies aren't doing so well. And this is all going to lead into everything and really play on the consumer. And if you look at what we've previously shown you, essentially look at your companies and what they're doing in terms of layoffs. They're really, really ramping it up. There was a sort of rebuttal here that the Fed pivot by September meeting. No way are the Fed going to pivot. They cannot pivot. For them to have done all this talking, all this flabbergasting, ECB form, what was Jerome Powell saying? We are going to get inflation down pretty much at all costs. He looked tired during the ECB meeting, like he was sick and tired of reiterating his view. And people go, well, and this is what I mean by denial. People go, oh, well, what if? Or, oh, well, maybe they're going to have to pivot. No. What people don't understand, and I keep bringing this up, in March 2020 is going to be historically significant moving forward when we look at it. Unprecedented times call for unprecedented price action. When was the last time the Fed printed $7 trillion and threw it into market? If that is the real figure, various figures out there. And you're trying to compare on-chain metrics with, last bull market or last bear market. You're looking at the RSI and going, it's oversold. RSIs can stay oversold for a very long period of time. Volume is what you want to be watching, guys, because it will tell you everything that you need to know. I am a very simple volume trader. It's the main metric that I use to place trades and to buy and sell. It tells you everything you need to know, and it's something that I've only really in the past 6 months become au fait with. I'm by no means an expert, but it's something that I'm heavily diving into. Not many books out there or literature on, or worthy literature on volume, but I'll share what I do find. So Michael Burry essentially is halfway through. We know that it's essentially the largest loss of wealth in human history without any comparison. Pundits act like it's no big deal, all trying to predict a rebound for trapped bulls. Everyone forgets about the wealth effect. This tweet, brilliant tweet, by the way. Let me give that a like, because I don't even think I'd liked it. Certainly retweeted it. This is a brilliant tweet, and this sums up everything that we are saying to you. Pain coming for markets. It's that simple. Even if we get a bounce, you could get a significant bounce here, by the way. I'm not saying that that's likely, but even if you got let's say on a wild example here, 100% bounce, it eventually comes lower if the conditions persist. When they change, that's when we pivot and reallocate. But for now, we keep on keeping on until there's reason to do otherwise. And then, of course, last bit of news is El Salvador by 80 Bitcoin. It's an experiment what they're doing. You've got to kind of give the El Salvadoran president credit in many ways. It enhances and is really aligned with Bitcoin and Satoshi's vision. But I posted a tweet actually, looking at Michael Saylor and when he bought Bitcoin. I'm not going to say I believe. I think that Bitcoin, you know, I was essentially here saying MicroStrategy was born in the dot-com boom, then reborn in the Bitcoin 2020 to 2021 bull run. Michael Saylor is the equivalent of a glory hunter. I do believe that's the case. You know, I think he's very much jumped on a trend just like he did the dot-com boom, and he's good at doing that. And MicroStrategy was very much a dead company up until they bought Bitcoin. You don't want to be investing in a company based on their investment decisions. You want to be, you know, we're in a crazy world in regards to investing, and you know, I'm not saying it's a bad or a good thing. Certainly, from a trading point of view, it's a brilliant thing that we have so much market participants. But certainly, when you given the fact that, you know, 96% of them will lose money, that makes very fruitful pickings for the 4% or so. But you know, anyway, we're getting off tangent. You know, Michael Saylor and El Salvadoran president continue to buy Bitcoin. May prove to be a brilliant thing once we get past this. You know, if Bitcoin in the long run, and I do believe in Bitcoin in the long run, I think Bitcoin's going to get to 100K eventually. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, lots of people saying that we're never going to see another bull run and Bitcoin's dead and all this stuff. The same people that were saying that in 2008. Yes, it's different conditions and we've acknowledged that, but Bitcoin and crypto survive. It is a very much technological revolution that's going to change all our lives. Let's see how the weekend unfolds. Remember, guys, you really, really want to be watching how the stock market opens. Futures is kind of signaling a bit of a down day, but nothing major. It's kind of following the UK stock index. I think people are in denial. For me personally, I want as much cash as possible right now because ultimately I believe we're going to get lower prices. Might be a bearish thing to say. I'm not bearish on crypto, I'm anything but. I'm extremely bullish over the long-term time horizon, but short-term, I think we've got more pain to come before we see that alleviation and redelegation by institutions and such. That is all I've got for you in this video, a bit of a longer one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, a like is always appreciated, so as a comment. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next YouTube video. Have a fantastic Friday, guys, and I'll catch you all in the next one.